I was in Uganda and this incident in Nigeria. So that means that program has been going on at least 15 years of us being deployed in Africa in situations that were not friendly.
Right.
So
can you tell me about it? I mean,
briefly, I can briefly tell when I was in Uganda, there were still elements of the Idi Amin faction still trying to take over the government. The Ugandan government was still young. Not only that, those crises that happened in Rwanda and those military leaders, African leaders that were kidnapping young children and turning them into soldiers, that was very prevalent. So although we're not in combat, it was an operation other than war, we knew of the danger and the hostility. But the wonderful thing about that experience is that I was among the Ugandan soldiers, and a lot of those soldiers were being trained during a civil war. They were having civil war fights around Uganda. And the 23rd Psalm really lived out to me because I saw that how my cup runneth over. In the presence of my enemy, thou preparest a table. So we were eating chicken, steak, vegetables, and whatever, and the Ugandan soldiers were eating porridge and beans. And I was like, wow, I am truly blessed. My cup does runneth over. And I knew that the rebels were in the hills and they had eyes on us. In the presence of my enemy, thou preparest a table. I was like, wow, this is what David was talking about. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. That's death out there. It hasn't touched you, but it's out there. Ugandan soldiers who were in the valley, we were up kind of on the high ground. They were kind of in the low ground. The soldiers we were training were dying from dysentery. They were dying from malaria, different type of diseases. That's the shadow of death. In the valley of the shadow of death. So the 23rd Psalm started saying, wow, I have been raised to a level, to a country that I have been blessed. And my brother doesn't even recognize me. Meaning, as a Ugandan, when I came over to Uganda and I met the Ugandan soldiers, they thought I was a Ugandan with the American uniform on to be an interpreter. And so when they called me up to the podium as a officer to address them in our opening ceremony, they were like, I think they call it Mandugu, white man, traveler. Who is this guy? Because they thought I was Ugandan. And I told them, I said, well, we're going to be here a while. I'll explain to you the whole history of it, because many of the village soldiers who were being trained never heard of the slave trade. So they want to know what kind of visa was I on, how did I get to America? I said, okay, well, brother, we're going to have a while. I'll share some of that with you. So that was the wonderful thing about being, now your military, your African officers who had gone to a university had some awareness of blacks in America, the slave trade. But the average African had not met a black American.